So the Lalitā Sahasranāma, the 1,000 names of Lalitā Devi, is considered to be an equivalent of a Veda, actually. And so there are various historical and mystical aspects of this text. I would suggest that you read a good book on it. And Bhaskara Raya, who was an adept, a Sri Vidya adept, he was a polymath and one of the chief contributors to Sri Vidya, the practice and the understanding of Sri Vidya. And he has written a commentary on the Lalitā Sahasranāma. And there is an English translation of it from the Adyar Library in Chennai. So you can look for that. That is an excellent source of this text. And of course, there are many, many, many translations around of this great hymn. And Glorious Alchemy, Living the Lalitā Sahasranāma by yours truly, is another resource of this great text. Now, the Lalitā Sahasranāma is considered to have been composed by the Wak Devathas. Okay, Wak Devathas. Now, if you look at the Sri Chakra, now those of you who are familiar with the Sri Chakra, and if you're not, that's another book you can look into, Fractals of Reality. But there are 9 avarnas or enclosures of the Sri Chakra. Avarna means enclosure. Enclosure of what? Enclosure of the central bindu. The bindu is where Lalitā Devi is resides in her full splendor. And there are 9 types of coverings all around her, and those are the avarnas. And in that, the second avarna from the bindu is the 8 triangled avarna. And those are the stations. The 8 triangles are the stations of the Wak Devathas. Okay. So these Wak Devathas, Vashini, Kameshwari, and so on, there are 8 of them. They are Wak Devata. Wak means goddess of speech. Wak means speech. And Devata means the goddess or the deity of speech. So these 8 goddesses that surround Lalitā Devi, it is said that Lalitā Devi asks them to compose this in her honor. And the Wak Devathas, they compose the Lalitā Sahasranāma. What is so incredibly beautiful about this hymn is that there are, of course, you've all heard of other Sahasranamas, right? You know the Vishnu Sahasranama. You know every deity will have their own Sahasranama. And it is said that the Lalitā Sahasranāma is unique. And of course, all traditions, mind you, will tell you that that teaching is the supreme teaching. And there is absolutely no contradiction here in Sanatana Dharma. But in the Lalitā Sahasranāma, it says the reason it's so potent and powerful and unique is that there is no repetition. There's no repetition of the nama. That's the first thing. Secondly, it follows this procedure known as Tantra Yukti. Tantra Yukti means there is a sequence in which the namas appear. It's not random. Okay, it's not, the sequence of the namas is not random. There is a reason why these namas are placed in this particular order. So my guru always says, in order to understand one nama, you take any nama from in the middle of a verse, you should understand what the previous nama is saying and what the next one is saying. And then you get the whole context of it. So you should understand this nama on its own, one before, one after, and then in the context of the whole verse. Then you have a greater understanding of it. And as Shannon was saying, one of the significant aspects or tenets of a text such as this is that it is written for people of different levels. Okay. So the first level is the highest teaching is given right in the beginning. Okay, the greatest, highest, most advanced teaching is given right off the bat. If you understand it, no need to go any further. You're done. Chop, chop. Right? If you don't understand it, well, there's a next level of teaching. There's another, a follow-up to that. And if you don't understand it, there's a follow-up to that, and so on and so forth. So you can understand this in this particular sequence, understanding that the first nama, Shri Mata, is the most significant of the namas, of the entire Lalitā Sahasranāma. And if we understand Shri Mata, great. We don't need to go anywhere from there. We got it. But it's wonderful to chant it anyway, right? Shri Mata. So, Shri Mata, Sri Vidya, Shri, the goddess. Shri, and you've heard Shri, it's applied in many, many different contexts. Shri means auspiciousness. Auspiciousness, what does that even mean? What does auspicious even mean? So auspicious is, you can think of it as wholeness. Wholeness as in nothing is lacking. Everything is full, everything is joyful, everything is dancing within itself in sweetness. And if you have seen Lalitā Devi, you can see probably behind me, there is an image of Lalitā Devi. As soon as you see Lalitā Devi, you experience that joy. You experience that sweetness. Unlike the fierce deities, like Kali and Chinnamasta and so on, Lalitā Devi has this inherent sweetness in her iconography, in her historical aspects of how she came to be in Sri Vidya and how this whole tradition developed. And so Shri means auspicious, and that is the basis of Sri Vidya. Vidya means wisdom. Okay, Vidya is not the same as Jnana. Okay, Jnana is an intellectual kind of understanding where you land at this understanding and you know a topic. You know a subject. Vidya means you become the subject. You embody it in your heart and your mind and your gut, and your way of being is infused with that knowledge. So it's not at the intellectual level. So Sri Vidya Upasana means you become auspicious. You embody this auspiciousness. You embody this wisdom of auspiciousness. Shri Mata. Shri Mata. So the most common understanding is what? Shri is auspicious. Mata means mother. Auspicious mother. That's not a bad, that's definitely not in any way a problem. That is in itself fantastic if we can think of Devi as Shri Mata, the auspicious mother. But then your question should be, as practitioners, as somebody interested in this, what does this mean for me? That should be your question. I mean, that's our ordinary question anyway, right? We are always thinking about ourselves. What's in it for me? So that should be our question here too. What does this mean for me? Shri Mata. And there are various ways to look at each nama. Shri Mata can be broken down into different ways. Shreem is a bija mantra. Shreem is the bija mantra of Lalitā Devi, of Mahalakshmi. It is the bija mantra of creation, of the auspiciousness of creation. So you can say Shreem A Ta. You can also break it down that way. Shreem A Ta. So A, each of these things have a significance. Remember, it was composed by the Wak Devathas, supposedly, right? So A means smriti. Smriti means remembrance. Remembrance. And in the non-dual Shaiva tradition, also known as Trika or Kashmir Shaivism, we understand Vak in a very systematic, algorithmic way. So in Sanskrit, there are 50, however you look at it, 50 syllables. Okay, of which there are 16 vowels from a to ha, aha. Right? You all know, most of you know this, a, e, and so there are 16 vowels. Now, if you look in Glorious Alchemy, there is actually a description of this. When you understand how creation happens, right? There is Shiva, Shakti. Shiva, Shakti together in absolute union is what is going on prior to creation. When Shiva and Shakti separate, that's when creation begins. And that is the way that we explain this whole devolution of consciousness in this tradition. When Shiva and Shakti separate, that's when one becomes three. Not two, one becomes three. How? When Shiva and Shakti are completely united, there's only one. But when Shiva and Shakti become separated, there is Shiva, there is Shakti, and there is the relationship between them. One has become three. Shiva is the observer. Shakti becomes the reflection of Shiva in the world, becoming all forms. And now there is Shiva and Shakti, this observer, the world, and the relationship between them. So one has become three. And so if you look at the Sri Chakra also, you have the Bindu, and immediately next to the Bindu, you see the three-pointed triangle. The 3 points of that triangle are one becoming three. Okay? So in this understanding of language, the devolution, how the Shiva and Shakti separate, is represented in the manifestation of the vowels from a to aha. In that, each stage of the devolution is given a particular syllable. A is known as Anuttara, the supreme. Try saying any letter without a. You will not be able to. Say ta, ka, ba. A is already implied in it. You cannot say any other letter without a. And that's why it's called Anuttara, the supreme. A is known as Ananda. A is known as Ananda. So the next step that happens from Anuttara to the next stage of devolution of consciousness is Ananda. So here we are saying Shreem, Ta. That is that bija of Ananda, of bliss. Okay, so there is the auspiciousness, there is the bliss, and Ta is another word for Lakshmi, for Mahalakshmi. So in other words, Shri Mata is Shreem Ata. This bija of auspiciousness that is reverberating in creation as Lakshmi, in absolute Ananda, in bliss. Bliss as in not, this blissed out, ecstatic. Of course, there's ecstatic reverberations. But here, when we talk about bliss, we are talking about wholeness. Nothing is lacking. Nothing is out of place. Nothing is imperfect. Even in all of the imperfections of the world, everything is still perfect. because that Shreem is still reverberating. And so there's the goal of sadhana in Sri Vidya is to arrive at this understanding or this knowing or the embodiment of Shreem. So Shri, Shreem, Ata is another way to break it up. Now, Mata. Okay, so Shri Mata, if you even take that, this word Ma is extremely important. Now, again, looking at the alphabet. So those of you who are really interested in this, and if you don't know the Sanskrit alphabet, I suggest you take a look at, there are plenty of, these graphics online. You can take a look at it. If you look at the structure of the Sanskrit alphabet, there are the vowels and then the consonants. And at the end of the consonants, that's when you see the others, the sibilants, the other types of letters are added later. There are 5 groups of consonants. So there are the vowels, and then there are the consonants. The last letter of the 5 groups is Ma. Ma is what bridges one part of the alphabet to the next part of the alphabet. It is the point of contact. Ma is the point of contact between this observer and the observed. Shiva and Shakti, the point of contact is known as Ma. Okay, Ma. So Ma, when we say Ma, right, which is, we tend to think of Devi as mother. Why is she the great mother? Why do we even call her Ma? We can call her anything. We could have called her Ta. We could have called her Ba. We don't do that, right? We say Ma. Because that Ma is that point of contact. She is the mother of auspiciousness. She is the mother of this entire creation, but she is also the point of contact for our senses. If I am looking at you, if I am experiencing this world through the 5 senses, that point of contact between the senses and my consciousness, my awareness, where I know that I'm experiencing something, that is represented by Ma, and that is Devi. She is that bridge of contact between my own awareness and the world. She is that point of contact. In other words, I cannot experience this beauty and Shreem and auspiciousness without her. She is the one that connects my awareness to the world in this point of contact. And that is why she is the mother of this. Mother of what? This world that I create. I take this world in, and then I create it in my mind. She is the one that creates a limited or whatever world that I create out of my own experience. That is also her. She is this entire creation, but whatever is being created in me is also her. So Ma means to measure. To measure. Now, Shiva Shakti, can you measure? It's immeasurable. There is no time. In order to measure something, you need time and space. In Shiva Shakti, there is no measurement at all. As soon as creation begins, where Shiva and Shakti separate and creation begins, the immeasurable becomes measurable. So if I ask you, please give me, an evaluation of your life. Tell me, how are you going to measure your life? Can you measure your life? Can you measure, is there a measure for your life force, your life energy? Is there a unit? There isn't. Is there a measure for your awareness? Can you say, well, I can fill 2 buckets of it? I can fill 2 barrels with my awareness. Can you say that? You can't. It's immeasurable. But there are some ways in which we can say, there are surrogates for that measure. And that is, well, I may have X number of breaths in my life, X number of years in my life. I may have this finite number of years to live. I may have this many pranic units measured as breath. Now, that measure, which comes from the immeasurable, is Ma, a measure of the immeasurable. So that immeasurable is Devi, and that which she deliberately measures out for each of us is also Devi. Not each of us only, this entire creation. This world will also end. This universe will also end. And she's the one that determines what the measure of each entity is. And that is why there is this, root of Ma. Shri Ma Ta. She is the one that measures out the immeasurable. Now, you have to take heart in this. You will never be given anything that she has not measured out for you. Imagine that. All your life circumstances, all your challenges, your gifts, your triumphs, your achievements, your successes, your failures, everything is measured out for you. And she is the one that measures it out. In the Bhagavad Gita also, Bhagavan says, I don't do anything. You are the product of your own action. How does she measure out this then? Through our own karma. Whatever karma we have created, only that much will come to us to enjoy. Nothing more, nothing less. Absolutely nothing more, absolutely nothing less. I can only experience all the sum total of my karma. Not yours, not somebody else's, only mine. Similarly, all 7+ billion of us can only experience the sum total of your own karma. Our own karma. His, her, whatever, their own karma. All creatures. When that karma is done for this lifetime, you're done. Doesn't matter. It may be one day, where an infant is born and dies the next day. Can be 100 years. Who knows? But it's perfectly measured. Measured as a measure of auspiciousness for each of us. She lives in us as that measure of auspiciousness. She wants to experience this world as you. When she has finished experiencing the world as you, according to your sum total of the karma, she says, good, your measure is done. Let's move on now to other things. Shri Mata. And then, very importantly, Shri Mata is the first, and in this word, in this nama, is encapsulated all of creation. The process of creation, as I told you. Shiva, Shakti becoming separate, and then all of the creation coming into existence is encapsulated in Shri Mata. So, what does this mean for us? One way to look at this is that We are continuously, constantly creating our own worlds. We are constantly creating all of our circumstances. And when we create these circumstances, we'll need to maintain it. And that comes in the next nama, Shri Mata, Shri Maharagni. Shri Maharagni, Shri, again, auspiciousness, Maha, great, Ragni means queen. Shri Maharagni, she is the one, she's the queen, she is the great queen of auspiciousness. What does a king or queen do? They maintain. They maintain what has been created. Right? Shri Mata, Shri Maharagni, and the third nama is Shrimat Simhasaneshwari. Such a beautiful nama. Shrimat Simhasaneshwari. Simhasana. Simha is a lion. Asana is to sit. Simhasana means throne. Okay? You can think of it as the one who is sitting on the great throne. But why Simha? That's what we'll explore in the next iteration of this. We want to keep these sessions very short, very to the point, and very practical. So from a practical standpoint, anyone interested in the Lalitā Sahasranāma should practice chanting it or listening to it daily. The second thing I would recommend is reflect on these namas in the way that it makes sense to you. As I said, Shri Mata, how are you creating your world? How are you continuously creating your world? Can you find auspiciousness? Can you find beauty in the world that you create in your own mind? Can you do that? Can you find auspiciousness in this world? Or are you only seeing the negatives? Auspiciousness transcends and subsumes the opposites. You can only find auspiciousness if you can go beyond the good and bad. As long as you think one thing is good and one thing is bad, you will not be able to find Shreem. Shreem is the sum total of all of creation, which includes Dharma and Adharma. And we can start to do that by understanding this business of measurement. How each of us is simply living out what we have created. And as soon as we take responsibility like this for our own actions, for our own fate, for our own destiny, auspiciousness starts to permeate your life, our lives.